आज हम सब ने एक महत्वपूर्ण और ऐतिहासिक समझौता संपन्न होते हुए देखा है। आने वाले समय में यह भारत, पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप के बीच इकोनॉमिक इंटीग्रेशन का प्रभावी माध्यम होगा। यह पूरे विश्व में कनेक्टिविटी और विकास को सस्टेनेबल दिशा प्रदान करेगा। मैं हिज एक्सेलेंसी राष्ट्रपति बाइडेन, हिज रॉयल हाइनेस क्राउन प्रिंस एंड प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोहम्मद बिन सलमान, हिज रॉयल हाइनेस राष्ट्रपति शेख मोहम्मद बिन जायद, हिज एक्सेलेंसी राष्ट्रपति मैक्रो, हिज एक्सेलेंसी चांसलर सोल्च, हर एक्सेलेंसी प्रधानमंत्री मेलोनी और हर एक्सेलेंसी प्रेसिडेंट वॉन डेर लेयन, इन सबको इस इनिशिएटिव के लिए मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। भारत कनेक्टिविटी को क्षेत्रीय सीमाओं में नहीं मापता। सभी क्षेत्रों के साथ कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ाना भारत की मुख्य प्राथमिकता है। हमारा मानना है कि कनेक्टिविटी विभिन्न देशों के बीच आपसी व्यापार ही नहीं, आपसी विश्वास भी बढ़ाने का स्रोत है। कनेक्टिविटी इनिशिएटिव्स को प्रमोट करते हुए कुछ मूलभूत सिद्धांतों का सुनिश्चित किया जाना महत्वपूर्ण है, जैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नॉर्म्स, रूल्स तथा लॉज का पालन, सभी देशों की संप्रभुता और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता का सम्मान, डेट बर्डन की जगह फाइनेंशियल वायबिलिटी को बढ़ावा देना और पर्यावरण के सभी मापदंडों का पालन करना। आज जब हम कनेक्टिविटी का इतना बड़ा इनिशिएटिव ले रहे हैं, तब हम आने वाली पीढ़ियों के सपनों के विस्तार के बीज बो रहे हैं। मैं इस ऐतिहासिक अवसर पर सभी लीडर्स को मैं बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं और सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं। मजबूत कनेक्टिविटी और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मानव सभ्यता के विकास का मूल आधार है। भारत ने अपनी विकास यात्रा में इस विषय को सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता दी है। फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के साथ साथ सोशल, डिजिटल तथा फाइनेंशियल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में अभूतपूर्व पैमाने पर निवेश हो रहा है। इससे हम एक विकसित भारत की मजबूत नींव रख रहे हैं। हमने ग्लोबल साउथ के अनेक देशों में एक विश्वसनीय पार्टनर के रूप में एनर्जी, रेलवे, वाटर, टेक्नोलॉजी पार्क्स जैसे क्षेत्रों में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स इंप्लीमेंट किए हैं। इन प्रयासों में हमने डिमांड ड्रिवन और ट्रांसपेरेंट अप्रोच पर विशेष रूप से बल दिया है। पीजीआईआई के माध्यम से हम ग्लोबल साउथ के देशों में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर गैप को कम करने में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दे सकते हैं।
All right, a major stride made as far as global connectivity is concerned through better infrastructure. For all those looking at this bulletin at this point, I want to understand, Kartik, Krishna, why is this significant? What is the importance of an India, Middle East, Europe corridor?
Well, Shweta, I think first and foremost, trade
Okay.
efficiency in trade. Okay, let's break it down.
Right.
What is this
Absolutely.
corridor? What is this corridor? Number one, it's an economic corridor.
Okay.
Okay. What is an economic corridor? We have economic corridors running through the length and breadth of India, right? Delhi and Mumbai is connected through an economic corridor. What does that mean? There is a great highway, there are great railway links, and there is great infrastructure connectivity between, let's say, Delhi and Mumbai, right? Now, what does this do? This helps free flow of trade. This helps free flow of people. This helps free flow of talent and free flow of the entire supply chain that drives the economy, right? So when you talk about a Delhi-Mumbai economic corridor, you're talking about your domestic interest. Now juxtapose this, that you're not actually just connecting Delhi and Mumbai, that's already connected, but what if Mumbai gets connected to the US?
Okay.
Bypassing China, bypassing Pakistan, which are of economic disinterest to us right now, you take the route from the west coast of India, from Mumbai, cut across all the way to UAE, Israel, and reach Europe, right? So that is the economic corridor being developed or being agreed upon between 4 countries, and this is the I2U2 block, right? Yet another block. So just for ample clarity, this is not part of the New Delhi Declaration. This announcement that we heard from Prime Minister is not part of G20 per se. This is on the sidelines of G20, but what an opportunity to actually have that multilateral agreement also arrived at, agreed upon, right? So what is I2U2? I2U2 is, I mean, Modi is great at acronyms. So India, Israel, UAE,
and US.
USA.
US. Okay.
Right, I2U2, simple. Now, why are we so bullish on creating this economic corridor? Obviously, we want to really strengthen our trade relationships with the Middle East, have a clear access straight into Europe.
Okay.
Right? You don't need China, you don't need Pakistan, you don't need to go through that narrow Suez Canal. You need new infrastructure, fresh infrastructure created and managed by this block of I2U2, which gives India access to Europe, Europe access to India, India access to Middle East, Middle East access to India, Middle East access to Europe, Europe access to Middle East, and through Europe, US gets connected, right? So it's a massive corridor. I don't know how many thousands of kilometers
of
is going to
link.
be, right? But primarily, we are trying to, through this I2U2, through this economic corridor, trying to again create an alternative to what China has heavily invested in over the last many years, called the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, for which China has already invested more than $1 trillion US, right? So it is a clear-cut economic decision being made in the larger interest of the world to create an alternative supply chain to China's existing supply chains and existing trade routes, silk routes, so to speak, with the world, right? So China has already invested enough and more and will continue to make those investments to create such economic corridors through its Belt and Road Initiative, which connects its borders and inroads into other countries, neighboring countries, and therein to the rest of the world, right? India is taking the sea route and connecting Mumbai directly with UAE, right? And beyond that, the map that I just verbally sort of, try to explain. Now, what all does this entail? It entails a road network. It entails a railway network. So it's you're looking at movement of freight also through wheels of the wagon. You're looking at trains to be able to carry, let's say, containers after containers of oil from Middle East back to India. Right, you don't need to be dependent only on shipping lines, but shipping lines and ports are also part of this economic corridor. So there's road, there's railway, there's ports, then there is data connectivity.
Okay.
So when we are talking about a digital economy, we are talking about a global connected economy. Data is also something that becomes a very, very potent tool here. So when you talk about 6G technologies making an entry into India, into the world, actually, I don't think anybody in the world uses 6G right now, but this 6G is also going to need optical fiber, is also going to need, rolls and seams of optical fiber networks, under the surface of the earth, under the sea beds, connecting data pipelines from one part of the world to another.
Right.
So there is railway, there is road, there is ports. No points for guessing in Israel, which is going to be the largest conduit port to facilitate trade.
The Haifa port.
Haifa port. And who has inked a partnership with Haifa board?
The Adani Group.
Absolutely. Right. So I think I will definitely want to watch out for Adani stocks tomorrow morning.
But keen eye on all
broadly
infra stocks for tomorrow
all infra
morning.
stocks and not
Specifically Adani stocks.
Yeah,
What he was
yeah,
saying.
yeah. So I think, yeah, broadly it's an economic corridor. It is going to be barrier-free, barrier-less connectivity and trade between these four blocks, so to speak, where India, the leader of the global south, but India per se itself, the Middle East, Israel, Europe, and then USA, all gets connected, and these are trade lines that get set up.
All right. You know, Krishna, some would say this is a snub to China, and perhaps Chinese premier knew it. I mean, of the variety of reasons people are counting for Chinese premier not making it to India. We know why Russian president did not make it, but we don't know why China said no. This could be one of the reasons, because there's already a lot of chatter and talks about a lot of bilateral conversations, which, by the way, India did not have with the visiting, Chinese Premier Li Qiang. And, there were other bilateral conversations that India had with the UK, Japan, US, and so on and so forth. So perhaps Chinese knew that there's going to be a big snub coming by the way of an alternate world-class trade route, among others.
I mean, when you look at it in hindsight, that's the easiest conclusion I can make. If the Chinese knew that a challenger, an open challenger which involves the US, comes up against their One Belt, One Road initiative, then that will be a huge, ego hurt, so to speak, for China. Either which way, we're talking about the fact that Chinese Premier Xi Jinping not making it over here, simply because, this is India's moment where it sort of reasserts itself as a global power, as the president of the G20. And there in itself, there was a problem for China, is what we thought when the first rejection came. China is not happy watching India lead the world in a global summit like the G20, as big as the G20. But then again, now you have to recalibrate those things because of what has just happened right now. An incredible infrastructure corridor that spans 4 continents, so to speak. It's incredible as to what has been achieved over here. Yes, the timing for how long will this take to be done and everything, is still there. We have to work it out. But the same with One Belt, One Road initiative. It takes a lot of time. These are, globe-changing developments. And here you have India literally looking at China in the eye going, you do that, we do this, we have partners, we have very wealthy partners to do this. Sure, that's not going down all that well with China, Shweta.
All right, and fresh competition, by the way, of a new economic corridor. And I think we were discussing this right in the middle of a break, whether this is going to happen anytime soon. Kartik says not in his lifetime.
I mean, see, it's a function of all these 4 blocks or 4 countries, so to speak, arriving at who invests how much.
Right.
Right. I think that negotiation. Number one, you've got to look at it as a project, and that project does not have one project manager, will have 4 project managers, right?
Actually,
so
many project managers.
Many, but at least,
right.
The Minister of Infrastructure for each country is definitely one key player in this top leadership of 4, right? Now, there are definitely 4 project managers to this, right? There is going to be some sort of a consensus to be arrived between them. There is going to be, if you look at it as a project, there is going to be a P&L to be made. There is investment to be made, right? Who bears how much of that investment? Who contracts what part of development to which vendor? Identification of a vendor which has the scale, the capacity, the capability. And again, I have a few guesses on who might get, India's part of the contract. And of course, we have large airport and port developers in India, and the Adani Group, of course, has bagged enough and more contracts of ports and airports.
Yeah.
So it is one of the most obvious fits. But then again, there is going to be subcontracting. You see an L&T coming in, right? You see, you
have options in this country.
You have enough and more options, right? So number one, the 4 countries deciding on the route, the exact route, the length of the route,
mapping
that route, right? And then procuring the material, procuring the arriving at the cost, and then arriving at who bears how much cost, and then actually the foundation stones in each of the 4 countries being built, and then you flank off in either direction. For India, there is one direction, we are just taking the west route, but look at Israel, for example. It'll have to have some infrastructure going east, some infrastructure going west, right? And now this massive Arabian Sea, between UAE and Mumbai and India, which part of that comes in which sea treaty, controlled by whom, and who has more influence there, and then who is going to bear the burden of the cost,
Right.
and then of course the whole science, the technology of building routes like those is a mammoth project. I mean,
absolutely.
if it happens,
I had to rejig my geography while you were saying that. Okay,
I think if it happens in this decade, if there is at least a 5%, 8%, 10% completion even within this decade, it is some achievement. But this again is, I would sort of stick my neck out and say it's at least a 20-year.
You're going to live, Kartik.
Yeah, sure.
You'll see.
Sure. I might not be as relevant.
Just to add to Kartik, what you're saying,
to,
as you were talking, Kartik, just reminded me the fact that how different it is from the One Belt, One Road initiative of China, which is mainly driven by China, with everybody else being a minor partner to that One Belt, One Road initiative. This way, India is teaching a lesson to the world of how to do these things. In this way, 4 people, 4 countries are equal partners in a global infrastructure project. This is like India wanting to do the right things the right way and really setting the tone for it. When it's the G20 president, I'm not surprised that China is not over here. Chinese Xi Jinping is not over here, because
where we heard the Prime Minister say "Sabka Saath and Sabka Vishwas."
But again,
in addition
I
to,
think just to sort of differ a little bit. I know it would have been a diplomatic challenge with China around at the G20 summit, but again, China would have had little to no say in an economic corridor which is not part of G20.
Exactly.
It's on the sidelines of G20.
But Kartik, I was only referring to the fact that China first, when Xi Jinping refused to come to the G20 summit, I thought it was a matter of China not being able to digest the fact that India is going to be an equal in a matter of time. India is an equal in so many other ways already. It's going to be a matter of time. India is well on its way to being the next China, if I may, or a new China, which is India in that sense. So I think China, which has been ruling the roost for the last 3 decades, is finding it hard to digest that India has now come up trumps, and India is looking at it in the eye and giving it back in its own currency, if I may. So I think therein lies that ego issue, Shweta. It is China's inability to digest India's progress.
all right, those are big words. I don't know how much of that is true, but diplomatically speaking, I think that's the message that is coming out of Xi Jinping's absence from such a significant global summit.
While I agree with what Krishna is referring to here, and there is definitely a thought there, which I would also need some time to digest, that is it actually competition with India and some sort of a neighbors envy sort of a scenario playing out, or is it a scenario where China is saying, hey, the West doesn't like me, I don't like the West. India doesn't like me, I don't like India. I have other interests in India, especially at the borders. But, I want to rather use my influence in another bloc called the BRICS. So you saw Xi Jinping
making it to the
a
BRICS.
great role at the BRICS summit that happened just last month, in the month of August, and then deciding that, let me give G20 a skip, because nothing concrete for China is going to come out of it anyway. I will not be able to exercise much influence with West, G20. With India, and India may be wanting to snub me, not shake hands with me. I don't want to, run through that embarrassment. And at the same time, let me rather use my influence in an area where I can dominate.
And
that
let's
happens
not
to be
forget
the
a
BRICS.
meeting between Prime Minister and Xi Jinping already happened at BRICS. So there were some conversations that happened on the sideline of the BRICS event. So that has already happened. Perhaps if anybody Xi Jinping was avoiding, it was Joe Biden and not Prime Minister Modi.
Definitely.
That is,
and I completely agree with that. And here you go. The global problem is US versus China, right? And here you have India, where you don't have to ask a question as to which side of the debate that India is on. We're on the side of the US. So China is going to be like, hey, I'm done. You friends hang out together. That's what's happening. China is
I'd like to believe, come to think of it, we are on no side at all. I think that is what a consensus proves.
We are on our own side.
We are on our own
which
side.
Which every country is.
Absolutely.
Right? I think at the end of the day, China is on the side of China, US is on the side of US,
and India is
on the side of India. So at the end of the day, wherever you get a better deal, wherever you get more influence, wherever you get, something that is going to help you make faster progress,
Yes.
and there is a win-win at play, you walk on that road.
Where is it
Wherever
happening
there's
for
a
India, Kartik?
win-lose,
My question is that all of that you're talking about, a
India-US.
win-win, better deal, all of it is happening India-US.
India-US.
It's not happening India-China.
absolutely.
So
definitely not happening US-China.